A very good evening to all. It's really, really nice to have so many of you with us. The response for this webinar has been immense, and we are so happy that so many of you have joined in today. We are waiting for a lot more people to come in because we will start at 6 p.m. sharp. We are waiting for the speakers as well. They're almost joining in, on the verge of joining in. A request from all of us, please keep yourselves muted all through the program. If you have any queries, any questions, you have your WhatsApp groups. You can write it there. We have a lot of groups, six separate groups. You've been added to one group, I think, each. So you can write your queries there, or you can use the chat box that is down below. Preferably, please keep your videos off for a better experience for the entire program. Uh, your video is going to take up a lot of bandwidth, so you might have a little bit of sound problems. So I request you to have a wonderful time with us today. We will start off very soon. Good evening, everyone. I'm Dr. Anindita Rai Chakraborty, the head of the Department of Food and Nutrition, Maharani Kashishwari College. I'm also the joint convener of this international webinar on food and mood aspects of healthy life. It is wonderful to have all of you with us. We also have almost an equal number of people streaming live on YouTube, joining us on YouTube live because we could not accommodate everyone on the Zoom platform. So we have about 2,500 odd registrations all over the world from Philippines, Norway, Bangladesh. So it gives me immense pleasure to be welcoming you to this program. We haven't started formally. We are just waiting for people to join us because obviously it will take a little time, but we will start sharp at 6 p.m. The speakers are all Indian Standard Time, yes, 6 p.m. Indian Standard Time. I take this opportunity to welcome specially Dr. Ujjwal Dash from Bangladesh, I think, sir. A hearty welcome to you. I hope you can hear us. We have a very, very vibrant team working behind this this international webinar who's handling the technical issues today evening, and there are so many others who are relentlessly with us day and night bringing to you today this program. A few requests. The first one, please keep yourselves muted all through the program. The second one, preferably keep your videos off if you want a good reception, because the video takes up a lot of the bandwidth. So it will be really nice if you can get an uninterrupted network all through. And please enjoy this lovely program. Thank you so much. As I had promised to keep you updated all through the program, we have with us none other than our keynote speaker, Professor Oshin Kumar Dottorai, all the way from Norway. It's such a pleasure to have you with us, sir. This is an informal welcome before the program. Obviously, we'll start off sharp at 6 p.m. We are waiting for all the participants. We have almost 500 participants already logged in the Zoom meeting room, and we have an equal number of participants who are watching us live on YouTube. The link has been shared in various groups. So please have a nice time today evening. We are just waiting for the program to start. We'll start, sorry, sharp at 6 p.m. Yes, just 6 minutes to go. The final rounds of checking going on. We are all set for a lovely evening. An evening where you will get to learn a lot of new things. Yes, the chat box is so active. It gives me immense pleasure to see so many people communicating and interacting. A big hello to my Bangladesh friends from Bangladesh. আশা করছি সবাই খুব ভালো আছেন. We have friends from Philippines, America, different places all over the world. And obviously we have people from Norway, from Pakistan. I extend a warm welcome from the Maharani Kashishwari College group, the Department of Food and Nutrition, obviously, and the Internal Quality Assurance Cell. We will just begin in 4 minutes. Just waiting for our principal ma'am to log in. I think she has logged in. We are just about to go.
Hello, good evening all.
Yes, we'll just start in 3 minutes. It's
Am
like
I
a
audible?
Yes, yes, Tanima, you're audible. Shejuti, I would like you to check your mic, please.
Yes, ma'am. Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
Okay, ma'am.
And I would request you to put your videos on only during the speech, only when you're speaking.
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah. So we are all set, just waiting for the time. We have our speakers as well. We have everything all set. Yes, 2 more minutes to go. And a few more participants are still joining in. For those who have joined in very recently, we are about to begin our program shortly. Yes, I think we are ready to go. Tonima, over to you.
Hello everyone and a warm welcome in today's webinar on food and mood aspects of healthy life, jointly organized by Department of Food and Nutrition along with Internal Quality Assurance Cell Maharani Kasheshwari College in collaboration with Bangladesh Academy of Dietetics and Nutrition. Myself Tanima Pal, and I thank you all for taking your time out and being here today. Now, I will take the pride of welcoming our chairperson, Dr. Seema Chakravarti, our honorable and lovable principal madam. A warm welcome to our eminent speakers, Professor Asim K. Dutta Roy, Dr. Helaluddin Ahmad, and Mrs. Aisha Siddiqa. I also welcome our joint conveners, Dr. Tapan Kumar Chad, Mrs. Sajida Kasim Jyoti, and Aninita Ray Chakravarti. I also welcome all the participants in the Zoom platform and YouTube Live, including the faculty members, our distinguished guests, and the students. Hope you will enjoy the session. Thank you. And now I would request our chairperson, Dr. Seema Chakravarti, for the inaugural address. Over to you, madam.
Hello.
Yes,
Hello.
ma'am.
Yes, good evening, ma'am.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Okay. This
Yes,
is a
ma'am.
very nice evening, and the topic is even nicer. That is food and mood. In our life, we need both to live. And today we have with us eminent speakers on this topic, and all of us along with teachers and students, and I think outsiders also will get a lot enthusiastic uh, speeches, and we will enjoy. And Tonima has started it very nicely, and I thank all of the organizers and also the speakers from outside India and also from India. Thank you. We should enjoy it.
Thank you, our beloved principal ma'am, for your prolific speech. We always look up to you. And we are forever grateful, ma'am, for your constant support to conduct this type of webinars and other educational activities in our college. Thank you, ma'am. Now our next speaker is Dr. Tapan Kumar Chand, who is IQAC coordinator as well as joint convener of this webinar. I would request you, sir, to address the webinar with your gracious words. Over to you, sir.
I think we have Dr. Tapan Kumar Chand with us. Yes, Tapanda.
Yes, am I audible?
Yes, yes, sir.
Yes, now I will continue. Okay. Respected principal, esteemed panel of resource persons, learned scholar, participants, students, all faculty members, and other dignitaries of this webinar. First of all, on behalf of IQAC of this Maharani Kasheshwari College and the joint convener of this webinar, I welcome you all to the present webinar. Friends, change is the only constant in nature, and we are in the process of changing very rapidly in accordance with the changing circumstances, scientifically, technologically, physically, mentally, and so on. Very recent COVID-19 pandemic situation has been bringing so many changes in our daily life activities as well as in our thought process also. We are realizing huge changes in every aspects of our daily life. As we are very much concerned with the teaching learning environment, tremendous changes compel our thought and action in numerous ways. Keeping the changes in our mind, the institution feels it is the right time to hold the webinar, which will highlight not only the changes in teaching learning process, but also on the changes needed for physical and mental well-being of all stakeholders. The internal quality assurance cell, and in association with Food and Nutrition Department of our college, along with Bangladesh Academy of Dietetics and Nutrition, jointly took the responsibility in holding the today's international webinar on the heading Food and Mood, Aspects of Healthy Life. A panel of esteemed resource persons with us, Professor Dr. Asim Kumar Dattarai, Faculty of Medicine, University of Oslo, Norway. Mrs. Aisha Siddiqa, Psychological Counselor and Lecturer, BRS University, Dhaka, Bangladesh. Mrs. Sajeda Kasim Jyoti, Executive Director, VADN, Bangladesh, is our patron. Dr. Hilaluddin Ahmed, Associate Professor, Child, Adolescent and Family Psychiatry, NIMS. They will discuss and highlight on different fields of their concern, keeping in touch with present situation. The efforts of the Department of Food and Nutrition would be fruitful with the cooperation from all participants, faculty members, and technical assistants altogether. I am thankful to all the faculty members and head of the department, Dr. Anindita Chakraborty of the Food and Nutrition Department, for their tireless initiatives and strong zeal to organize this webinar. I am hopeful and wishing a great success of the present webinar. Thank you all.
Hello. Now I will request our joint convener, Mrs. Sajida Kasim Jyoti, Executive Director, Bangladesh Academy of Dietetics and Nutrition, to address the Zoom house. Over to you, madam.
Hello.
Yes.
Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Assalamu alaikum, and a very good evening to all of you. I am Sajida Kashim, nutritionist and executive director, Bangladesh Academy of Dietetics and Nutrition. This is my immense pleasure to meet you all in this huge event. My heartiest gratitude to chairperson and patron of this program, Dr. Sima Chakraborty, to eminent Professor Dr. Asim K. Dr. Roy, and famous psychiatrist from Bangladesh, Dr. Hilaluddin Ahmed sir, and also our psychosocial counselor, Mrs. Aisha Siddiqa. We are very grateful to the organizers, especially Dr. Anindita Chakraborty ma'am and Dr. Tapan, for choosing BADN as a partner in this huge event and for the opportunity to grab the knowledge from eminent scholars. The BADN team is honored. We hope that this event will accelerate the effort to exchange professional knowledge between professionals of neighboring countries, especially the nutritionists and dietitians of two Bengali-speaking nations. I hope in the coming days, we can continue for the tremendous effort together. Please enjoy the program. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for your wonderful speech. Now I'm privileged to introduce Dr. Anindita Ray Chakraborty, Assistant Professor, HOD of Food and Nutrition Department of Maharani Kashishwari College and also joint convener of this webinar. She has done her PhD from the University of Calcutta and worked extensively on diabetics and medicinal plant. She has written several books and has several national and international publications. She is currently pursuing postdoctorate research with International Rice Research Institute and British funding. As an expert in food and nutrition, she is a renowned face amongst her peers as she works as a consultant nutritionist in many government and non-government organizations. Besides this, she is a great teacher and a loving colleague whose constant efforts have always been impetus to better learning. Ma'am, I would humbly request you to moderate the technical session. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Shejuti, for this lovely introduction. It gives me immense pleasure to have so many people with us today. This international webinar was a dream of all of us here, because this topic was very close to our hearts. Food and mood, the two main aspects that guide us now, every day, daily, especially so in times of crisis. There's a very famous saying which goes, Deepo bhakshayate dhvantam kajjalam cha prasuyate yaddanam bhakshayanitam jajayate tadarishi praja. It means that lamp consumes darkness and produces soot. A man will produce what he consumes. By consumption, we mean food. By consumption, we mean the knowledge that his mind takes in every day. So you see, the connection is vast, the connection is so wide. Think about the times when you must have felt happy. I'm sure all of you must have felt very happy taking a bit of a chocolate in your mouth, or maybe a scoop of ice cream sometimes, or maybe when your favorite food did not taste as good because you were sad. So there's an interrelationship, there is a connection between food and mood, the psychological part, and the chemicals that food give us. Think about tryptophan, the amino acid which produces serotonin, a neurotransmitter, or the happy chemical, as we call it. The happy chemical is that's because the serotonin gives us a feeling of happiness. And tryptophan, the food item, the amino acid, helps in producing that. There are several amines. The list is actually endless. So without much delay, I would start and take you on this journey. So embark on this journey with me. And to do the honors, to take you on this journey, we have our eminent speakers today. Our keynote speaker, it's an honor for me to be introducing our keynote speaker, Professor Oshin Kumar Dr. Roy, and he's one of the most well-known faces around. And for those of you who don't know him, I'm sure there's no one, but if there is, the formal introduction is necessary. So I would take this privilege of introducing Sir. So Professor Oshin Kumar Dottorai, Faculty of Medicine, University of Oslo, Norway, is a professor in the University of Oslo from 2001 and is a group leader in chronic diseases. He was the principal scientist in Aberdeen University, UK, a senior health scientist in Ohio, USA, and also associated earlier with the Wright State University School of Medicine, also in Ohio, to just name a few of the institutions which were lucky enough to have him as a faculty. He is the editor-in-chief of the Journal of Food and Nutrition Research and a fellow of International College of Medicine. He received the Elizabeth Kushner Memorial Award and many more in his brilliant academic career. He has also several international patents. Fruit Flow deserves special mention among all of them. A person having experience of delivering lectures on a plethora of topics on nutrition and others, medical topics as well. And we are extremely fortunate to have him with us. So over to Sir for his keynote address on food and mood. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a very kind of you introduce. I'm very humbled. And at the same time, very honored to be involved with you in such a kind of project that involving both Bengal. That is very exciting for me. And to begin with, I'd like to give my appreciation to the principal of the college, Dr. Shima Chakraborty, and of course the committee and the Bangladeshi Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, and most obviously to you to take the trouble to organize such a huge conference, rather truly an international conference.
Thank you so much.
With this, without much ado, I will start my lecture. And the topic is very interesting, and interesting in the sense that food is considered today it was there in a long time back when the food should be your medicine and medicine should be the food, because food contains more than 3,000 chemicals that we take every day, and we have so many thousands of genes and epigenetic, etc. And we actually produce in our system and maintain these things with the help of bacteria. We have more than our own cells, the bugs, microbes, and everything actually is working in sun to make us what are human today. So in a way, we are hybrid, but at the same time, we have sub-identity that I'll be talking about that we face. So this is from Oslo, this university hospital you can see. It is probably you know the name of Oslo with that is associated much more with the Nobel Peace Prize than anything else, and very small country, and it actually survived the corona fight. It has coronavirus is almost subsided here. Okay, with this I will start my talk. So as you know, the normal brain function actually deals with so many things. It is the master of organ of anything and more complex, and it needs energy. And 20% of our energy is consumed by the brain. But it does so many things. It gets all the information body needs and process it, give back to us. And also it is involved in thoughts, emotion, perception, languages, and it went through a lot of evolution processes as our brain is getting better, bigger and bigger. And so it was a big problem initially because of the pelvic size was so small, and a lot of women died prematurely because during the birth situation. And luckily C-section actually helped them to have, because we need a larger brain, but the passage was not large enough initially. But evolutionary, the woman has changed something, but it's not the topic today. But what I'm trying to say that we have of course, this century is a century of disease of brain, and we have more than 1 billion people facing this neurological disorder, from mood disorder to some express disease like Alzheimer, Parkinson, etc. And also it is highly linked with cardiovascular problem, diabetes, etc., because they all actually affect the brain function. And also other things like epilepsy, etc., and all these things. And it's a major issue. So in this context, I think this seminar is very useful to those who are involved in this field as a dietitian, nutritionist, clinician, etc. They should be all actually benefited from this. But before I go to my lecture, probably all of you know what are the nervous systems, how it works, and the brain and spinal cord is the central nervous systems, and you have a peripheral nervous systems. Sorry, both afferent and efferent, and sensory inputs and autonomic nervous system. Then you have sympathetic and parasympathetic and somatic. But there is another nervous system, very important, enteric nervous system. The large intestine, they have their own nervous system. We call it second brain. So gut feeling actually is a very important, and it has a very good meaning because gut can work independently almost, and also in unison with the central nervous system. So this is the organ actually is endowed with the nervous system, its own nervous system, that it can control its the large intestine behavior, and also it can control so many other things, including the mood, etc., that I'll be talking soon. But before we go there, I'd like to give you this cartoon that the unit of this in the brain, the nervous system, is neurons, how it works. And there we have billions of neurons, and they communicate with each other, the action potential, the most important thing, the gap between the neurons, that is the synapse. That is very important. The electrical signals actually converted into chemicals, the secretion of the chemicals, we call it neurotransmitters. And these neurotransmitters actually fill the gaps between the neurons and the presynaptic to the postsynaptic. This is very important. And these neurotransmitters, we have several neurotransmitters. And out of these, I will be talking mostly today, serotonin and dopamine. These are involved in pleasure, mood, etc. And other neurotransmitters, I will not be talking too much because they are involved in different bodily function. The important thing about the neurotransmitters is they are synthesized and they do the work, and then they should be disappeared, and the homeostasis should be maintained. If it is not maintained, if it's too much of neurotransmitters or lack of it, we produce several kind of abnormalities, disease, etc., that including the changes in the mood also. So how it works? For example, if you look at this cartoon, that the synaptic vesicles, all these neurotransmitters, when the electric potential comes in, they release the neurotransmitter, then it goes to the postsynaptic density there, and they, through the receptor, they send the signal back again. And some of the neurotransmitters, they can be taken up by the secreting part of the neurons, the presynaptics. And this is very important that I'll be talking later on, that how the reuptake mechanism is so important, especially in the serotonin reuptake in terms of controlling the mood. Now, the mood and neurotransmitters, because before I come to the food, I would like to relate the neurotransmitters, the food. When it comes to the mood,
excuse me, sir. Excuse me, sir. I would, sorry to interrupt, but I think the slides are not visible.
sorry?
The slides are not visible. You need to
How
share your
come?
screen, sir.
So what should I do? I should share the screen.
Yes, sir.
Is it now shared? Is it now shared? Hello?
No, sir. It's not yet visible. I've given you the share screen option.
Oh, sorry.
I will just again send it. You just need to share the screen. That's it.
Oh, I
Yes.
thought it is shared. That's why I'm talking.
No, no,
Sorry.
sir. No, sir. No, sir. It's fine. But you were so eloquent, we could understand even without the slides.
But
So
still,
you just need to share. There's a share screen option below your screen.
oh, I have to check it. Yeah, I can share screen. Then I shared.
Yes, and then you need to double click the screen that you want to share.
Is it shared now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And
Okay.
slideshow should begin. Yes, sir.
Okay, so
Absolutely.
I'll just go
Perfect.
previous few slide that I showed you. Is it
Yes,
okay
so
now?
this is perfect. Yes, sir. Perfect. Perfect.
Okay.
Thank
This
you.
is
Thank
this
you
is
so much.
my hospital underneath the building. I'm just reiterating what I told you, and then I discussed some of the part of the normal brain functions, how what is important and how it is mechanized, and how this nervous systems is working. But most important is the enteric nervous systems that I'll be talking about today. And then I discussed the neuron, how it works, through the and the neurotransmitters that I discussed. And I'll be mostly discussing dopamine and serotonin. They are involved in the mood and pleasure, etc. And then I discussed the unit of neurons, how these different secretion, whether it is serotonin or dopamine, are secreted when the stimulus come, and then it is received by the postsynaptic neurons, and then through the receptor, then the signal goes on, and how this level of this neurotransmitter in the synapse are controlled is very important in terms of disease like mood off, etc. Then how this concentration of the serotonin can be increased by using different chemicals that I'll come later on, or via different food system, whether it is okay or not, that I'll be discussing. So now I was discussing the mood and neurotransmitters. As I said, that there are four neurotransmitters that are involved in the impact of the mood, what we feel and how we feel, etc., etc. And of them, serotonin help us be happy and content very easily, or the dopamine has a motivation. It goes for more and more and more. It is very difficult to control if it's not. And dopamine also involved in other things like cardiovascular thing, etc. So I'll be talking later on. And then epinephrine, which I'll not be talking here today. It's important. It drives energy and critical thinking, and you need the combination of all these things to be human and to be more successful. And also GABA has some calming effect. So these are all the neurotransmitters. They work through specific neurons. They secrete those things and then affecting the particular neurons, and then produce this physical effect or mental effect in our system. Now, if we go back to dopamine and serotonin, and if you look at how the dopaminergic system evolved, that happens actually during the agriculture kind of evolution, that when people think they have something possesses some things, and there is some fear to lose of it, then the dopaminergic system is actually evolutionary. That time it happens. But his main job is that these neurons actually release dopamine, which carries signal between the neurons, and they influence the motivation. As I said, it is very motivating, and reward system is there. It mood, it's control sleep, also learning, movement. Physical movement is very important, as you know, in Parkinson's disease. When the dopaminergic neurons are not there, people are really, really handicapped. They cannot move much, and they have big problems. Alertness and blood flow is very important. This is controlled by dopamine and urine output also. Whereas the serotonin is another neurotransmitter. It is also involved in sleep-wake cycle, mood and emotions, pleasure, contentment, metabolism, appetite. It also controls the peristalsis of the gut, digestion. It is also involved, and also involved in blood clotting, because serotonin is carried by the human blood platelets, and they can secrete serotonin, and they are involved in platelet aggregation, etc. But important thing, big difference between the dopamine and serotonin is most of the serotonin are produced in the gut, almost 95%, and 5% only produced in the serotonin. That's why the role of food comes here with the serotonin much more than dopamine. But of course, dopamine, as Anindita said, that its precursors are also available, tyrosine, and serotonin precursors, tryptophan. But now I'll discuss whether the food can actually increase their level and can modify the mood. But if you look at here, these dopamine pathways is mostly involved in reward system, pleasure, euphoria, and motor function, as I mentioned, and also preservation. Whereas the serotonin pathway is mostly mood, memory processing, sleep, and cognition. These two are very important in terms of pleasure and mood, and also this kind of cognition and preservation. These two neurotransmitters are very important. But the question is that how and why people are actually having this mood disorder and problems. And if you look at the brain, that is the most important fatty acid in the brain is the docosahexaenoic acid. And we recently published a paper, and it showed that docosahexaenoic acid is very important for neurogenesis and synaptogenesis. And this has to be delivered by the mother during the last trimester of pregnancy to the fetus for their brains, for structural materials. And human brain development, unlike in animal, is mostly time-bound. That means very important last trimester supply of this fatty acid, docosahexaenoic acid, by the mother to the fetus in order to have them a better balanced brain development. And it can only happen that when the enough source of docosahexaenoic acid is available to the mother diet. But if you look at the DHA is also important in the brain. They are involved in protection of the brain. They inhibit cell ganglion, it is eye cells, and they protect against oxidative stress in the brain. Brain consume, as I said, a lot of energy. There is a big chance of oxidative stress, and a lot of mood-related disorder is related to oxidative stress also, that I will come later on. And cytokines, it downregulates the pro-inflammatory signaling pathway. It upregulates anti-apoptotic proteins and downregulate pro-apoptotic proteins, the death protein. And also it is involved in the synthesis of BDNF, that is brain-derived neurotrophic factors, and that actually protect and promotes neuronal survival, very important. One should not lose neurons. That happens in Parkinson's disease, and it should increase the synaptic plasticity, and it play a role in neurogenesis. So you can see the DHA is not only a structural materials of the brain, but it also involved in cell signaling in the brain, in the neuronal signals, in neuronal membranes, and involved in the protection, etc., etc. And this DHA that mothers give us when we are in the last, especially in the last trimester, and DHA is involved in so many functions. As I mentioned already, it inhibits oxidation of fatty acid. There are a lot of trial is going now with the DHA in a patient like Alzheimer's disease and Parkinson's disease and ADHD, that is hyperactive children, and also in the bipolar disease situation. And the mechanism of the DHA is, as I said, neuroprotective D1 that inhibits TNF-alpha 1 and protecting the whole cellular ambience in order to save the neuron disorder or neuron death by docosahexaenoic acid. Now, question is, what is docosahexaenoic acid or DHA? DHA comprises 40% of the polyunsaturated fatty acids in the brain, and human brain is a completely lipid-based. It is a 60% dry weight, and we have done a lot of work in terms of how DHA is transferred from the mother to the fetus, because I was involved in the brain situation with the premature babies. Those babies born during the last trimester of pregnancy, they may survive, but with the compromised cognitive function and other problems, because they don't get the last trimester docosahexaenoic acid supply from the mother to the fetus via placenta. And we showed that APBPM is the protein which is actually preferentially transferring maternal arachidonic acid and DHA from the mother to the fetus. If you look at both sides of the maternal side and the fetal side, you'll see there is a biomagnification of DHA and arachidonic acid when it goes to the mother side to the fetal side. And this is done by this protein that we discovered is responsible for the preferential transfer of biomagnification of the very two important fatty acid for the brain development. And if you look at the human evolution, most of the evolution started near the sea or the river, because they need this fatty acid is mostly present in the fish, the docosahexaenoic acid and icosapentaenoic acid. And it seems like in the human situation, the maternal placenta actually preferentially transferring these two fatty acids for the brain development of the human fetus. And this is not so much true in the animal. Their brain can grow even postnatally and later on, but the human brain, it is very important last trimester of pregnancy, where it is the mother responsibility to transfer the DHA from the dietary source, whatever they have it. And we have shown it, any mother around the world, whether it is a vegan or omnivorous, they all actually mobilize docosahexaenoic acid in their plasma during the last trimester of pregnancy to support the rapid fetal brain growth during the last trimester of pregnancy. And if we don't have it, then there will be compromise in the brain growth. And as you see here, that the DHA and arachidonic acid for term infants is like this, is always present. And it was not present until our work. The DHA and arachidonic acid was not present in the formula food. And obviously there is no such thing in a premature baby food. Those unfortunate baby, they could not take the maternal milk because mother was sick also that time. And for these babies now, it has been done, the DHA and arachidonic acid must be supplemented in all the baby food, which is not there, only linoleic acid was there. But these days, after 10, 12 years, I think, yeah, it is more 10, 12 years now that most of the baby food company are putting DHA and arachidonic acid. Now, if we look at here, it is done in our hospital. We showed that the mother, if mother is supplemented with corn oil, no DHA, and mother when supplement cod liver oil that contain EPA and DHA, as you see here, then the babies born from them, they have all the babies, they have a much better in terms of the cognitive indices, in terms of sequel processing, simultaneous processing, and the mean standard. They're all better off when the mothers are supplemented with omega-3 fatty acid, DHA, and EPA. So there is also interventional study, and there are a lot of meta-analyses all done, and it showed that the importance of omega-3 fatty acid in brain development. But it is unfortunate in India and Indian subcontinent, DHA intake is pretty low. Especially these days, that study from South Indian study, it shows that the DHA intake is 0.011 gram per day, whereas in Denmark and Norway is very high. And you must know that DHA and EPA present not in this fish, the sweetwater fish, very little, must be from the sea, cold water fish, or you can get the precursor alpha linolenic acid from mustard oil, or spinach, and a little bit in urad dal or muscular dal, something, nothing, nowhere else, and spinach, of course. But then one has to make DHA and EPA from the precursor alpha-linolenic acid. But the intake of DHA and EPA directly from meat source and egg and etc. pretty low when it comes to Indian situation, the data we have. Because if you look at here, the dark green vegetables, mustard oil, etc., they have alpha-linolenic acid, omega-3, then they convert to DHA is pretty low, is not almost there. It is better to have preformed EPA and DHA. You can have it from only sea marine, that is seafood, or algal source, or chicken, egg, etc. Those are fed on that sort of things, or free range bird. They might have DHA and EPA, but with anything grown commercially, the DHA and EPA content is pretty low. Now, coming back to the brain development with overall situation, when as I mentioned, the last trimester life is very important in terms of brain growth, but they are subject to so many threats. We have recently shown the bisphenol A can have impact, and phthalates is a very big problem, pesticide, and of course the lack of enough DHA. But moreover, there is another danger is a C-section babies. The C-section babies actually, they're missing the microbiomes when they come out from the mother if they are cesarean baby. And they definitely they misses the most important bacteria, commensal bacteria. They're important immune functions. That is the last year paper published in Nature Medicine. They showed with hundreds of cesarean baby versus normally delivered babies, there is a big difference in terms of bacteria. And I will talk later on how this gut bacteria is important in terms of attention disorder, in terms of hyperactivity in the children, and in terms of HPA axis. If the HPA axis, that is hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis, is very, very active, that happens if those don't have the commensal bacteria. That means those are born in C-section babies, they will be very, very hyper, and they will mood disorder will be much more. And these microbes, they are missing. Actually, when they come as a cesarean way, then they have a problem also that I'll talk later on. So before I go to the real situation, the mood and food and the adult life and their thinking, I thought I should touch the developmental part of it. That is how the brain is developed, and what sort of the raw materials they needed, and what sort of environment is there, and the challenges that we are facing here, especially in the subcontinent, and when it comes to the brain development and maternal supply of particularly docosahexaenoic acid. Now, coming back to the low level of serotonin, and this is shown that if the level of serotonin is pretty low in the brain, then it creates a problem with depression, anxiety, impatience without any explanation, fatigue, cognitive impairment also, and negative thoughts with no apparent cause, agitation, and they often have a strong sugar cravings, this sort of situation. Now, one has to understand the fundamental of medical processes going on it. Then if you treat the patient like that, then it will be much better. Otherwise, you will develop patient with a lot of side effects. Now, how we treat those sort of situation, low serotonin, what we do actually, as I told you, that the presynaptic neurons, the serotonin comes, released, and then is taken up by the receptor, postsynaptic one, and then it does the job. But if the serotonin is not there, is not much, then there is a problem. This develop the mood disorder, etc. But then the idea is to put the SSRI inhibitor, the serotonin reuptake. It is reuptake by the same neuron that is releasing it. And in order to doing that, if you inhibit the reuptake, then you increase the serotonin concentration in the cleft, in the synapse, and that is the one way to improve the situation. But the question is that if you do the cell culture study, this SSRI, the reuptake inhibitor, actually does the job right away. But if you give to the patient has to wait another 4 weeks in order to get the benefit. That shows there may be some other mechanism we don't know yet that is responsible for the betterment of the mood by using the SSRI. So there are a lot we should know and how we like to do the test, and the patient must be very, very well monitored, because if the serotonin, we are dealing with something which is, we don't have much proper control. If the serotonin level is getting high and high, or it getting other problems, then there could be a major problem. So it is these sort of things we do, but there are problems, and we cannot use for a long time SSRI. But it is much more specific these days than 10 years back. But still, there are a lot of worries about this sort of treatment. But if you look at this again, dopamine and serotonin, that the high levels of dopamine has a problem, low level dopamine also has problem. They have a ADHD, that is a lot of children having this problem, including Asperger's and depression, addiction, etc. And high levels are involved with mania, psychosis, and extroversion. Whereas in the serotonin is very interesting. This recent, last a long time, it is almost a few years now, we know that this is the neurotransmitter associated with the feelings of well-being and happiness. It regulates sleep. But the important thing, 90% of the body's total serotonins are synthesized in the gut, not in the brain. Only 5% in the brain. So food with a higher ratio of tryptophan to leucine and phenyl increase the production of serotonin in the gut, like banana and papaya. But do they help the mood? That is a question. Because serotonin produced other than in the brain, because of the blood-brain barrier, the serotonin will not go inside the brain, because blood-brain barrier would not allow serotonin to pass from the blood circulation that is produced in the gut to the brain. But there are other ways that I'll talk later on, how the microbes is helping that. And microbe also help to produce more serotonin in the gut microbe. And food with lower ratio of decreased production of serotonin are wheat, rye bread, etc. They actually reduce the production of serotonin. So as you see, these are the chemical messengers, but they are produced in the, dopamine also produced to some extent in the gut, but not like serotonin. 90% serotonin are produced in the gut. And they can be, their concentration can be increased in the gut by changing the food habit. But the question is how can it be? Can it change the mood, or can it go into the brain? And that is, and how it is possible, that I will be discussing in the later part of the talk. So if we come to the mood and food, and in this cartoon, if you look at here, the central biological factors, and that control the peripheral biological factor, they crosstalk also. And that is also depends on the food intake and food choice. And that also involves the food and mood. And obese people have a more depression than other people, and their food intake, etc., can change, and they can change the brain signaling system also. And so that means there is a vicious circle of, and also you can say the better circle also, with mood and food and the brain behavior. But important thing is the nutrition as such. In general, nutrition is very important. One study done in Calcutta by Dr. Devnath Chaudhary and their groups, they showed that in the old home, where the nutrition is difficult, they have a big problem of the dementia and the good mood, because there is a problem. It is a worldwide problem. In the hospital also, there is a malnutrition in hospital, old people, because they don't digest food properly, and they don't like to eat food. So this sort of mood and the food, the relationship also in the hospital population, especially geriatric population, old home, there is a big problem. And another thing is inflammation and insulin resistance. They are also responsible, some of the depression that I'll be talking them later on. What is the mechanism? In the diabetic condition or pre-diabetic condition, where there is insulin resistance is there, then the less glucose is involved. And then there is a problem of the of stress and obesity, poor diet, sedentary lifestyle, that all actually contributing to depression. So physical exercise also is important. So there is no one panacea. It is a whole kind of a global approach should be to our body in order to improve the mental disease and disorders. And if you look at recently, as I said, that we have more microbes than our own cells in our body, and in the gut we have 2 kilos of bacteria, and these bacteria we get from the mother initially, but unfortunately those who are born cesarean baby, they don't have it. They are colonized by environmental bacteria. Later they might get it from their mother's milk, but those who are born normal way, they would get the bacteroids and bifidobacterium, etc. These are very important. We have 100 trillion bacteria. They are in the gut. They produce several molecules that actually involve in the mood and also other well-being in the human body. And as I mentioned, 90% serotonin made in the gut, in the enterochromaffin cells, and 50% dopamine also produced in GI tract. And it seems like they need a support from the bacteria in order to produce these things. And also, this gut has in their own nervous systems. This is very important in order to crosstalk with the central nervous systems. So recently, studies from Harvard, Oxford, and they published a paper in Nature. They showed that there is an intrinsically linked gut-brain axis. That is, something is produced in the gut by the gut bacteria, and that actually influences the brain function, well-being, and how we think about it. And of course, the gut bacteria, they do from the food, and what sort of food they are doing it, and what sort of the chemicals they produce, I will talk later on. So the important thing is that if the ability of this bacteria is down because the lack of that sort of bacteria, that happens in a condition if you take a lot of antibiotic or a lot of environmental pollution, and those sort of things can changes the flora, and that can have effect. That can also impact the mental situation. So there is a kind of a crosstalk between these two systems, that's the gut and brain. And if you look at how they do it, and the gut microbes, actually they love dietary fibers. Dietary fibers means polysaccharide, etc., which are not soluble or absorbed in the small intestines. They survive there, they come to the gut, and in the gut, this gut microbiota, they like it. And they produce small chain fatty acid. They produce like acetate, propionic acid, butyric acid, has a huge impact in the brain function. And this is produced by the gut microbiota from different kind of polysaccharide. If I have a time, I will talk about it later, how you can modify butyric acid and can changes the mood, etc. And then they also changes the immune system. And then through, they actually then affect different cell system, neurons, microglia, astrocytes, and also improve the blood-brain barrier. They improve the immune systems. They improve the gut junction, so that no toxin comes to the blood circulation. So all these things actually done by this gut microbiota that we get from the mother initially, then we develop and colonize. If we don't abuse our system by taking a lot of antibiotic and medicine, etc., and we keep those things, then we keep the normal flora, and then it actually helps us in order to have a good mood and good food, and also cardiovascular system that I'll be talking later on. If I further analyze what I talk about it, if you see the number one, the first thing, microbes interact with immune cells in the gut and prompting the cells to make cytokines that circulate from the blood to the brain. If these microbes produce a wrong kind of cytokines, that cytokine will go to the brain and then can changes the blood-brain barrier and can create a lot of inflammation that we see in a lot of blood-brain disorders, including Parkinson's disease. And the microbiota from their remote places, it can control that. Other is they produce a lot of neuroactive molecules, butyric acid, etc., and including cytokines, and the vagus nerve, that is super way of neuron pathways that actually crosstalk from the gut microbiota to the brain. And then they also talk to neuroendocrine cells in the gut, and they also produce other kind of metabolites that actually directly affecting the brain. So as you see that if we have a right kind of bacteria that I talked about earlier, that then we have a proper kind of approach and response from the gut microbe, so that our homeostasis, the gut microbe situation continues and it does not produce any abnormalities. And they need certain kind of food. As I mentioned, the dietary fibers are the main kind of food that we should get from the fruits and vegetables, and not the refined food. And they actually, from that kind of polysaccharide, they produce different kind of molecules, are helpful for the gut immunology, and also for the axis, gut-brain axis also. And if you look at here, that this gut microbiota that is produce different, they crosstalk between the microbes and the gut. One can influence the other. So it's very important, if you changes one, other will be changed. And so is true for gut-brain axis. Brain can send different kind of signal. They can change the gut microbiota, and gut microbiota can change the brain. There are a lot of studies done with animal models. They showed that how the microbe-derived neuroactive molecules actually changes the brain and brain connection situation, and its stress reactivity, mood and sleep, and visceral sensitivity. And also these gut derived molecules, neuronals and immune and neuroendocrines, these are also influenced by the gut microbe situation. So under stress condition, this, if you look at the right kind of right side, then you see that the healthy status, then you have a symbiosis and diverse microbiota, intestinal barrier integrity is maintained, and there is no problem of leaky gut, etc. Then you have a nice kind of homeostatic signals, that is an intestinal barrier is developed, and they have a healthy CNS function with the brain. But under stress conditions, abnormal cognition and stress response, and under this condition, and the gut is damaged, and the leaky gut is happening, and dysbiosis is there, and there is overgrowth of the pathogenic bacteria, etc. They produce wrong kind of signals, and that affect the human brain, and they produce the stress situation. And this is so in order to keep these people better, of course, the gut microbiota is a major situation. We should think about it now. And if you look at here, that as I mentioned, the commensal microbiota, which that is a premature babies, that they miss it, they produce butyric acid, and butyric acid is very important to stop the inflammation. And it is very important to keep the mitochondria all right. Mitochondria is very important in brain disorders. And it seems like butyric acid, it can actually protect the mitochondria and important for brain function. And if these are not there, then there is a decreased cell proliferation, decreased synapse functions, and that lead to high inflammatory condition, LLRP2, and they produce the cytokines, and this cycle of inflammation goes on. So as you see here, the importance of the gut microbiota in order to produce this small short chain fatty acid, these are involved in several places in the neuronal physiology, where it can inhibit ROS, it can increase the cell proliferation, it can decrease the inflammatory response cytokines, and this is mostly done by butyric acid. Only can come from gut microbiota, and through mostly by commensal bacteroids, commensal microbiota, and these are the most important in order to keep the brain intact. Now, if I summarize that so far, what I tried to say, that is, in the gastrointestinal tract, the gut microbiota is so important. Any alteration of the neurotransmitter levels is they can change the direct production of the GABA, norepinephrine, and it can serotonin in epithelial cell, and they can contact the brain with the vagal signaling system, And if the bacteria are not there in the early life, then the HPA axis can be defect and can produce hyperactivity in those children in the adult life also, and can produce the problems of the different kind of problems in the brain. And there is a recent study showing that these sort of bacteria are actually increasing this neurotransmitter production. And if you look at here, the dopamine is produced by several bacteria that I cataloged here from a review paper. Noradrenaline, serotonin, there are several. And there are several work is going on at the moment. And we have a fecal bank in Europe where we are isolating this bacteria and looking for transplantation of this bacterium in those patients in order to bring normalize the brain disorders. Now, another food item is very important, I did not discuss yet, that is the ketogenic diet that has been used in a very, very extensively in epileptic patient. What is ketogenic diet? Ketogenic diet is a high-fat diet, very low carbohydrate and very low protein, but you cannot use for a long time. And this ketogenic diet actually produces beta hydroxybutyrate and acetoacetic acid and acetone. They can easily cross the blood-brain barrier, and they have a very interesting effect in terms of energy consumption changes, in terms of neurotransmitter changes. I'm not going in details, but if you are interested to look into this, and there is definitely a more positive result with epileptic patient, but with the mood disorder, there are some conflicting results, but it has to be, kind of implemented very, very accurately in order to get the effect, because important, it varies with person to person, the response to the ketogenic diet, but nevertheless, it has mechanistically, it is protecting astrocyte, it protecting neurons and microglia, and it has some nice effect on some of the neurotransmitters. So if I summarize my talk today, what I'm trying to tell, the big story in a very, very small and very trivial or very simple way, that the brain is a highly complex organ, and human brain is mostly formed during the last trimester of pregnancy. And then we don't have much experience, but as we experience, we develop a lot of system in the brain, but you need the structural material, because the blood-brain barrier, when it is developed, then it is difficult to transfer DHA from the food to the brain is very difficult, it's not easy. So that's very important, that enough of or sufficient amount of DHA, docosahexaenoic acid, should have in mothers before conception, during the pregnancy, as well as during the postnatal life, during the milk, that the babies can get the enough of DHA and arachidonic acid for their brain growth part that happens up to 3 years. And as I mentioned, the brain needs a lot of energy, and it likes glucose, but also it likes keto acid. As I mentioned, ketogenic diet is important. And we are still understanding the brain, because it's a very complex organ. And we now know, and in our medical school, the nutrition is as important as medicine. As I mentioned, the diet or food, it contains thousands of molecules, and in some countries more also pollutant, and how it is interacting in our system in terms of the proteins, gene expression, epigenetics, and brain and other organs. And it has been shown, a lot of studies, that ketogenic diet, DHA, and the gut microbiomes are beneficial in certain brain disorders. Work is now going on at the moment as we speak with Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease, that how the DHA supplementation, what sort of form, how it can be done, and what sort of dose for how long, that can be beneficial to those sort of people. But when it comes to the mood and food, I have something to say. That is, the food is so much cultural part, also so much of these days is mostly industrial part, because in Norway and others, the big industry control what we eat, is not that what we like. because it's whatever available in the store we buy it, and a lot of people are eating actually the same thing. So it is not always that what we prefer, it is what is available to us. And also a lot of other things coming, like organic food versus non-organic food, and also so many pollutant and toxic materials coming. These are all actually, we're in a big problem when it comes to understand the role of food in human beings, because a lot of things is not in our hand. But in an isolated study and in the Western studies, most of these studies done in the Western world and in animal, in Western world, the level of DHA is much higher than Indian situation or Bangladesh situation. So I think that the DHA intake in our parts of the world is pretty low. It has to be increased. And that can be done from the fruits and from spinach and mustard oil, etc., and urud dal. We can get linoleic acid, and if we are metabolically fit, like we have a proper amount of insulin, vitamin, etc., so it can be converted to DHA, and the mother can then supply to the fetus. Because we have to strike it very early at the developmental stage, that there should be plenty of DHA and the brain structure is well developed. Then we can think about the intervention at the later stage if something happened. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much, sir. If I say that this was indeed a unique and beautiful experience for us, I think I'm speaking for everyone. If you just go through the chat, you would see everyone commenting on how informative, how wonderful and beautiful the session was. Thank you so much. And obviously there are lots of questions, but we'll take the interactions later on. I pass on the proceedings to Dr. Tanima Pal, to introduce our second speaker.
Hello. Dr. Helaluddin Ahmed. Dr. Helaluddin Ahmed is a psychiatrist and has graduated in 1999 from Chittagong Medical College and completed MD Secretary in 2011 from Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujib Medical University, Dhaka. Received fellowship training on child psychiatry from Fondazione Child Italy and trained on autism and neurodevelopmental disabilities from South Korea. He also received a fellowship from the Japanese Society of Psychiatry and Neurology on 2010, Indo-Global Psychiatric Initiative Fellowship on 2011, and Y-Mind Fellowship from Sao Paulo, Brazil on 2013. He worked as a temporary advisor of WHO Bangladesh in the field of mental health and substance abuse for short term in 2012. He was the area coordinator of Australasia region of the Early Career Psychiatrist Council of World Psychiatric Association from 2012 to 2014. He has 45 publications as author or co-author and presented 11 scientific papers in several international conferences. He has more than 200 popular write-ups on the mental health issues published in the national, daily, and weekly papers. In 2013, he has received Professor Hidayatul Islam Gold Medal Award for research contribution and devotion in psychiatry as a young psychiatrist of Bangladesh. Currently, he is working as an associate professor of child, adolescent, and family psychiatry at the National Institute of Mental Health, Dhaka, Bangladesh. And he will be speaking on the topic eating behavior and mental illness. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you to the organizers, to the chairperson of today's session, Professor Shima Chakraborty, other joint conveners, Dr. Topon, Dr. Arindita, and Mrs. Sajeda, and all the panelists and all the audience. Actually, I am starting my talk, my topic, you say the eating behavior and the mental health. Before we start my talk, I want to give my thanks to all the audience, especially there's a huge audience here. I think there is more than 800 audience are there, and all the panelists and the organizers and Maharani Kashishwari College of authorities. My thanks, there are three thanks actually. First thanks is, before I'm starting with the thank you. My first thank you for the nice event. I also enlightened from this event. And the second thanks is for give me an opportunity to be a part of this actually. And the third thanks is for inclusion mental health of this event. Actually, I'm a mental health activist and also mental health expert, and it's my great pleasure to talk about the mental health in this international session and webinar. And today I want to my contents of my talk, actually what is the mental health, what is the eating behavior, and alter the eating behavior from mental health conditions, and what mental health symptoms from the eating disorders. And I want to talk few words the issues of concern from the research activities regarding the mental health and the eating behavior, what are the cultural context of the eating behavior, and the COVID-19 and eating behaviors. Actually, it's the burning issue. So I want to say a few words on the COVID-19 and eating behaviors, and also some take-home message, the last part. This is the contents of my talk today. And my next talk is, I want to say, what is the mental health? Mental health actually the state of well-being in which the individuals realize his or her own abilities, can cope with the normal stresses of life, can work productively and fruitfully, and is able to make a contribution to his or her community. That is the 4 components of the mental health. First, he or she know that his or her own abilities, can cope with the normal stresses, daily life stresses, can work productively and fruitfully, and have a contribution to his or her community. This is the WHO definitions of the mental health. And the mental disorders. Disorders is that some sort of deviated from the normal mental health. The mental disorders are generally characterized by some combination of abnormal thoughts, emotions, behavior, and relationships with others. That is the mental disorders, the changes of the mental processes and the changes of the behaviors. And what are the mental processes? Mental processes are the perceptions, memory, cognition, thoughts, emotions. These are the mental processes. During any mental disorders, all the mental processes are altered. And some, not all some mental processes are altered in many conditions, and all the altered in many conditions also. And in mental disorders, we have altered the behavioral abnormalities, that is the sleeping pattern, eating behaviors, many behaviors, odd behaviors, or disorganized behaviors we can found in the mental disorders. And now I want to say, what is the eating behaviors? Eating behaviors is a broad term that encompasses the food choice and motives, feeding practices, dieting, food items, and eating related problems such as obesity, eating disorders, and feeding disorders. All are we call the eating behaviors, not the disorders. What the people are eat, the menu, the food, the rituals, what everything, these are the eating behaviors actually. The eating behaviors, the timing, what time we have to take our diet and meal, the food choice, what food we have to take, eating disorders, it is the mental health conditions, and the eating practice, how can we eat. The eating behavior and mental health conditions, there is a relationship between the eating behavior and mental health conditions, that I want to say that there are some changing eating behaviors, any form of mental health condition. Like during the OCD, Obsessive-Compulsive Disorder, the change of eating behaviors, I will explanation later. There are some depression, stress, anxiety, the changes of eating behavior. We had say the psychosis, where the insight will be lost. That is the schizophrenia, you all heard the name, bipolar mood disorder, paranoid psychosis, delusional disorder, all have some sort of eating problems and eating behavior changes. And in case of children and kids, the neurodevelopmental disorder like the ADHD, what the sir already said, Ashim sir, ADHD, autism spectrum disorder, the eating patterns also change. These are the changes of the eating behavior from mental health conditions. Now I want to say some eating behavior itself as a mental health conditions, not the symptoms of any mental health condition. The eating behavior, eating disorder can be itself a mental health condition, like the feeding and eating disorder described in the DSM-5, Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorder, 5th edition. The DSM-5 said these are the eating and feeding disorders. One is Pica. I will explain later on what the symptoms of Pica, rumination disorder, avoidant or restrictive food intake disorder, anorexia nervosa, bulimia nervosa, binge eating disorder Other specified feeding disorder, eating disorder like purging disorder, night eating syndrome, unspecified feeding or eating disorder. Everybody known about the bulimia nervosa and anorexia nervosa, but beside the bulimia nervosa and anorexia nervosa, there are many feeding and eating disorders described in the DSM-5. I now explain a few words regarding the changes of the eating behavior from the mental health conditions. I not describe all the mental health conditions have some eating disorders, just one or two or the few important topics like the OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. Obsessive compulsive disorder, I don't want to mention the obsessive compulsive disorder. What is this? This is the repetitive task, repetitive thought, intrusion thought. These are the OCD. And the eating pattern change, like the appearance, time, set menu, sitting position. If a person want to sit in a specific position to take the meal, he take the meal in a very specific time, 1:35 p.m. for the lunch, 8:38 p.m. for the dinner. This is the timing. The set menu, every time, every day, or the weekly, you have to need a set menu. These are the OCD pattern. The dietary selection, the item choice, part or whole item, taking the part or the whole item, dry or gravy foods, etc. Hoarding behavior, during the buffet, collect all the items at once and hoarding at plate, etc. Everything at his plate, that is the obsessive compulsive disorder. Part, maybe the part of obsessive compulsive, not always, but maybe the part of obsessive compulsive disorder. The washing, checking, counting, and food related, washing the food 13 times, washing the food 7 times, checking the food items 5 times, and counting the food items. This can be the part of OCD. And in case of depression, anxiety, or stress, increase food intake as a stress reliever. The eating too much or too little due to loss of appetite and psychomotor retardation or psychomotor other changes. A person can too little eat during the stress or too big amount of taking the food materials during the stress. Both can occur, and the psychomotor retardation, the patients or person cannot take any food, so take what he can found, the loss of appetite or little or very small amount of food he or she will take. Eating whatever easily available, denatured food, ready food, uncooked food, a person can say in the very severe major depressive disorder. And the substance abuse, another important issues during the depressions for copa, alcohol or others, a person can take the substance during the depression. It's very interesting for the psychosis, the schizophrenia, bipolar mood disorder, delusion. Patient has, the person has the very, we say the undue suspiciousness regarding everything, including the food. In the schizophrenia, the person's eating pattern, rituals may be changed. It will be disorganized, and the pica can be occurred. What is pica? I'll say later on. And due to paranoid delusion, paranoid means the undue suspiciousness. The person avoid food cooked by others. He or she thinks somebody giving some poison in the food and mixed with poison. So he or she not take the food cooked by others. In manic phase of bipolar mood disorder, another psychiatric symptoms, excessive intake of food, excessive buying or preparing of food. A person is taking all the foods but not able to take, buying all the foods but not able to take. These are the another change. Delusional disorder is like the paranoid delusion to any food, belief that may cause any harm, so avoid this food, or taking particular food for any benefit. That's the another delusion. Beliefs, it's the more than beliefs, not beliefs. It's a delusion, is the firm false belief that the taking particular food for any benefits or avoid particular foods for any harm. So changing the eating behavior from mental health conditions like the neurodevelopmental disorders, autism spectrum disorder has sensory sensitivities and prefers food with particular textures, especially the dry foods, stereotype foods, and preoccupied food intake, follow or routine for eating rituals. They have the eating rituals always. And the attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD say, develops certain eating disorders, disruptive mealtime, disorganized food intake, and prefer the junk foods or ready-made food. And now I want to say the feeding and eating disorders as mental health condition itself. That is number one, the Pica. What is Pica? Pica is the persistent and eating non-nutritive, non-food substance over a period of at least 1 month. That is the taking the soil, taking the white paper, taking the wall distemper, taking the sand, taking the also the cloths. That is the persistent eating non-nutritive, non-food substance. In case of children and in case of in case of some sort of pregnancy, the pica is not think as a disease, but so it is the not part of cultural context or not match with the developmental age. This is the pica. We say the persistent eating of non-nutritive, non-food substance over the time of more than 1 month at a time. And another is the rumination disorder. Ruminations mean repeated regurgitation of food over a period at least 1 month. Regurgitated food may be rechewed, reswallowed, or spit out. Taking the food, then regurgitate. The repeated regurgitation is not attributable to an associated gastrointestinal or other medical condition. If this is for the like the vomiting, for the GIT syndromes or the any medical condition, it will be not the rumination disorder. Rumination disorder is the regurgitation due to some thoughts or some delusion. And another disorder, I think, the avoidant or restrictive food intake disorder. That is the persistent failure to meet appropriate nutritional or energy needs associated with one or more of the following, like the significant weight loss due to low intake of food or low intake of nutritive components of the food. And another is the significant nutritional deficiency, dependence on internal feeding or oral nutritional supplements only, marked interference with the psychosocial functioning regarding this, the avoid and restrictive food intake disorder. Another, we know the name very well, that is the anorexia nervosa. That is the severely restricting food intake through dieting or fasting, exercising excessively, and intense fear of gaining weight or changing body shape. This is due to the extreme weight loss or not make expected developmental weight gain. The person want to be decrease his weight, thin appearance, and abnormal blood counts will be found during this anorexia nervosa. The severely restricting food due to the intense fear of gaining weight or changing body shape. Another is the bulimia nervosa. The bulimia nervosa is the recurrent episode of binge eating. Person will take the more food, discrete period of time, any time after 2 hours of taking the lunch, after half an hour after taking the dinner, and they have the lack of control to taking the food, binge eating and binge drinking. The force to vomit then or exercising too much to keep from gaining weight after binge eating. They don't want to gaining weight, and using laxatives, diuretics, or enemas after eating when they are not needed. They are thinking, I am gaining weight, so I have to vomit or laxatives, diuretics, or enemas after eating when they are not needed. That is the bulimia nervosa. Another feeding and eating disorder that we say, that is the binge eating disorder, the persistent eating of non-nutritive, non-food substance over a period of at least 1 month. It is like the Pica, but it is the nutritive foods they will taking, that the binge eating, they were taking the nutritive foods. And now I am give some research findings regarding the mental health and eating disorders. This is the Iranian study, the mental health problems in relation to eating behavior pattern, nutrient intake, and health-related quality of life among Iranian female adolescents. And this study found the Iranian female adolescents have the snacking and convenience, planning ahead, and meal skipping eating pattern were positive predictor of emotional disorder among female adolescents. And snacking and convenience, that means they are taking the junk food, planning ahead, they are all over to the takeaway and the restaurant food, and meal skipping, they are skipping the meals, lunch or dinner. And among the female students, that is the more prevalent female adolescent. And there are the findings proposed that unhealthy eating patterns are more common predictors of mental health problems. That means the unhealthy eating patterns and mental health problems have some sort of correlations and some sort of association with that. And another findings, that is the weight-based stigmatization, psychological distress, and binge eating behavior among obese treatment-seeking adults. This is an Australian study, US study, American study, And this study suggests that weight-based stigmatization predicts binge eating behavior, and that the psychological distress associated with the stigmatization experience may be an important mediating factors. And issues and another findings I want to share with the mental health and eating behaviors, and it is the Journal of Canadian finding. The overeating and the under eating have the complex effects, sometimes contributing to improved feelings of well-being, and at other times having the individual feeling guilty, deprived, depressed, and anxious. Researchers attempt to identify both what they know and the gaps in our knowledge. Another Australian finding, the relationship between stress eating behaviors and the obesity. The study suggests that chronic life stress may be a causally linked weight gain. That is, the life stress and the weight gain is associated with a greater effects in, especially in the men. Stress-induced eating may be one factor contributing to the development of the associated. And another question, the are eating disorder, the culture-bound syndrome? Yes, that may be a culture-bound syndrome, or there are many debates like this from the history, hypochondria, miraculous made in the mid-centuries, and the spiritual and starvation in the very religious, the spiritual starvation, upobas in spiritual starvation, and nowadays the zero figure. All are the cross-cultural and the culture-bound syndromes. And the attractive body image, which is the attractive body image? The modern Western idealization is the thinness as a common etiologic factor of anxiety, anorexia nervosa, and bulimia nervosa, and the historical perspective, religious practice, societal view, dynamic process, and all at the culture-bound syndrome. And the debate is that these are the biochemical or only biochemical, or there are some culture-bound syndrome, debated ongoing, but we are saying there are mixed, there are some culture-bound and the biochemical. And now I say a few words regarding the COVID-19 and eating behaviors. Eating habits and lifestyle changes during COVID-19 lockdown. An Italian study say the total 3,533 respondents, 76 were female. In this study, the stress and the eating behavior change, the 49% are weight gain during this lockdown or the quarantine period. 3.3% quit smoking. The population group is 18 to 13 years higher adherence to the Mediterranean diet compared with the younger and the elderly population, that some people are taking the healthy diet. And there are some, there are some hot beverages taking are increased. The homemade sweets are increased. The homemade pizza are increased. The cereals are increased in this their food menu, and some spirits and wine, that all are decreased. These are the decrease, the shadow area, the wine, spirit that are decreased. The fresh fish also the decrease during the season because the lack of supply of the fresh fish. These are the eating behavior change. Another study, another report, we found the 8 in 10 consumers changed their eating habits due to COVID-19. Every 80% person have changed their eating behaviors during the COVID-19 pandemic, that most of the persons are cooking at home and snacking more the outside food, washing fresh produce more. These are the important, and eating more than usually new items, that is eating less healthy than usually do. That are also some 15% also do that. So 85% have some sort of change during the COVID-19 pandemic. And another article published in the Indian Express, that is what is the impact of COVID-19 on the eating habits of all that situations. That's we say something that is the disruption of the food supply. Some person has a solo dinner. The dinner itself own alone, that the Western model, not like the Indian or Bangladesh. We are in the same family. We are taking the food with the family members. Home cooked versus restaurant. Home cooked food are increased during this lockdown period. And altered menu. Our menu has altered, and hot beverage item taking is increased. The tea, coffee, and others. And changes our food buying habits, not taking from the open market, taking the online service. Changes food processing habits, like the washing and buy the food by special method, and some obsessive compulsive rituals like the washing, dressing, eating of the foods. And there are some myths like the fake news in the social media, and other the persons are taking some hot drinks and other things, that is the hot beverages or the masla tea and others. And influence of social media like a Bangladesh that is named the thankuni leaf. The persons are taking the thankuni leaf to get rid from the COVID-19. That is the influence of social media and another myths we have found. And last, I want to say the take-home messages. The mental health conditions can change eating behavior. Any altered eating disorder may specific eating disorder or mental health condition both. We have to give an eye to the mental health conditions or eating disorder, during found the changes of the eating habit of persons. And eating behavior or disorders have influences by culture, which is culture bound. So it is a culture. And during any disaster like pandemic, persons changes the eating behavior. Sometimes it is normal and sometimes it is a disorder. At last, I want to give my thanks to the Maharani Kashishwari College authorities and the Bangladesh Academy for the Dietetics and the Nutrition, the BDN, and others organizers for giving me the opportunity to say a few words in this session. Thank you, sir. Thank you, all audience. Thank you, the organizers. Thank you, chairperson, and thank you, the panelists. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ahmed. It was a pleasure listening to you and how well you connected the disease part, the psychology part, and the food intake. Really, it is a topic of vast concern and a topic that really needs to be addressed. Over to Shejuti Rai for introducing the third speaker of this evening. Shejuti?
Yes, ma'am. Can you hear me? Okay, ma'am. I am honored to introduce Mrs. Aisha Shiddika to you all. She is currently working as a psychosocial counselor, lecturer, as well as in eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, EMDR at BRSA University, Dhaka. She holds an MPhil degree in educational psychology from the University of Dhaka. Not only this, she is the country representative of Northeast England South Asia Mental Health Alliance. She also has a successful and functional experience in the field of neurodevelopmental disabilities and mental health issues. The topic of our today's presentation is Impact of COVID-19 Pandemic on Mental Health. Ma'am, I would request you to deliver your lecture.
Oh, that's great, and a nice, very good introduction about me. So here I'm going to share my screen. So maybe it's okay, right? Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, we can see.
Okay, that's great. So thank you so much. At first, I want to give a big thanks to the organizer for the interesting topic first. So it seems really interesting to me, food and mood. The similar words, similar topic, the connection. So I also think about the connections, and there are so many connections. And the first two lovely speakers and their knowledgeable sharing, I'm really amazed and really honored to be one of the speakers with them. So I'm really excited. And again, as I'm a mental health professional, so I'm really thinking about my mental health right now. So I'm feeling so excited right now. So here today we're going to discuss about the impact of COVID-19 situation or any other challenging situation on our mental health. So it's really amazing that already, okay. So already Dr. Hilal mentioned so many important discussion regarding mental health and the food connection, and also the first speaker, I'm really honored to have the chance to hear from him. So nice discussion. So I am going to start with one of the research of American Psychiatry Association. So here they have conducted the research to find the mind-body connection. So 80% people who believe that mental health has a great impact on our physical health. At the same time, 94% of the participants stated that mental health and physical health is equally important. But still, in our country, in Bangladesh, or if I think about the South Asian region, we are not too much aware about our mental health. We are mostly focused on our physical health, and it's a demand of the culture, it's a demand on the financial crisis or financial health has a great impact on our daily life. So why? So according to World Health Organization, there is no health without mental health. And health means the state of complete physical well-being, mental well-being, and social well-being. So without physical health, we are not going to be healthy. Without the social interaction, social skill, we are not going to be healthy as well. And mental health is the middle point, and mental health is connecting us with the society. So what mental health is? So why mental health is important? Because in the case of the biochemical changes, we already know about the first presentation, that the neurotransmitter. So the abnormal pattern of neurotransmitter can impact on our mood, on our mental health as well. At the same time, depression itself can create a great impact on the case of our physical health, in the case of insomnia, in the case of fatigue, in the case of so many high blood pressure, heart disease. So there are so many connections between the mental health and the physical health. At the same time, when I feel that I'm somebody, I can communicate with the people in front of me, then my social interaction will be so good. So mental health, that means what I'm thinking about myself, that gives me the idea about my physical well-being as well as my social well-being. So already Dr. Hillel mentioned that what mental health is. So mental health, there are 4 components of mental health that the individual know about their potentials, about their skill, what they can do. That gives them the power to cope with the normal stresses of our life, and that make us productive, fruitful, to contribute for our community. So this is the component, and look, there are so many important components that is included in our mental health. So mental health influencing our total life pattern, as well as physical state also affecting the mental health, as we already know about from the previous 2 presentations so nicely. So if I'm moving forward, that how does mental health work? So in a situation, we feel something, we think something, and according to our thinking and feeling, we behave, we act, we respond. For example, for this webinar, if I take my example, that at the beginning, when I see the topic by BADN, and I'm really thankful to Jakaria Bhai and the BADN organizer, because they're really connected, and I have done so many work with them. So when they propose with the topic, it becomes so interesting to me. So again, the Kolkata College, so they are so interactive. So my feeling about this event becomes so hopeful and so interesting. So that can create a thinking on me, within me, that this will be a wonderful session. So then my behavior is, I'm preparing my presentation, we are coordinating, we have our demo version on Zoom meeting. So there are so many behaviors. So a positive feeling can lead a positive thought, can lead a positive behavior. But if I think about COVID-19 situation, think about our mental health. We have so many grief, so many loss. We are just missing our daily living. The starting of the day, the morning, the night. When I come to home, I was really tired, but that tiredness was a beauty. So we're missing right now. So in the COVID-19 situation, there are so many thoughts that I can't handle the situation. This situation is really a threat. Where is the end? what will be the future. So there are so many negative thinking can create so many negative feeling. We become frustrated, we become angry sometimes, we become what should I say, we become confused about the situation. There are so many family issues here. So that negative thinking creates so many negative feelings within us, and we act like this. So our family violence, domestic violence increased already, and there are so many there are some cases, as I'm working with the young adults, so there are so many increased habit of self-hurt tendency. So they started hurting themselves because there are parental issues. So we have a behavioral change during the COVID-19 situation. So it starts from our thinking or our feeling that leads the behavior. So how I am going to act in a situation during an event that leads to our mental health. How I'm thinking about the situation, what I'm thinking about myself. So if I'm moving forward for the next slide, that World Health Organization is mentioning that the fear, the worry, the stress we're feeling right now, it's normal regarding the situation, because it's a fearful situation, it's an uncertain situation. We don't know where is the end, what is going to happen. We are missing our past, we are conscious about our future, the loss of job, the financial crisis. There are so many fear, so many worry, so many stress in our daily living activities. So it's all the emotional vulnerability is normal during the situation. At the same time, we can think about ourselves, that how we can use this situation to find out myself. That's also another part of our mental health, that thinking positively. There, each and every event has two impacts, the negative effect and also the positive aspects. So as we always listen that from our childhood, that I can do anything, I'm nobody, I can do, I always compared with my friends for the academic performance, for the play, for so many things. So our parents, we do respect our elder people, those we are really comfortable with the comparison. We still compare with ourselves, but it's not a healthy pattern. It's not a healthy practice. So this negative feeling, that's why the pathway of our brain, the negative thinking is really so smooth. So that's why when we see an event, or when we go through an event, we pick the negative thing. So here, if we think about the COVID-19 situation, there are some positive things also. I'm coming to that point later. So yes, here I want to mention some of the challenges, mental health challenges during the COVID-19 situation, and it's not from any research finding or anything. I have read so many articles and also the World Health Organization reports. This is something I find it from my practice, personal practice with my students, with my clients during the last 3 or 4 months. So during this COVID-19, I'm sharing just from my experience. So I'm feeling for that the most of the cases people feel depressed, that what is going to happen to me? What is going to happen to my child? What is going to happen to my parents? There is a danger, not for that what is going to happen to me, but the loving one, what is going to happen to them. So that can create depression, anxiety. And in the case of age and gender, if I think about a child, I have a young kid of 5.5 years. He always become irritated to stay in the home. He had started his study, school. He has now missing his friends as well. So showing temper tantrum is a common behavior from him. So I'm picking it from my personal experience. So I'm sure there are so many kids in the community, in my home, my family, in our every family, they are facing difficulty. And it's interesting that as a parent, we transfer our anxiety to our child. So there are so many relationship conflict and domestic violence worldwide. We have so many report yet, and I want to mention one of the report of our country. That's a recent report of the month of May, the 2 months back. So it's a survey basically. So it was conducted by a local NGO. So they have found that the domestic violence become increase day by day in a alarming proportion, because when we think about the male member of our family, they are frustrated with their financial crisis, with their anxiety, with their depression. And according to Freud's theory, they displace their anger. It's something, displacement is something when we angry, if we think about ourselves, when we become angry upon my teacher, I come back to my home and give a slap to my younger sister because she is powerless than me. I can transfer, I can displace my anger upon her. So this is something that they are doing right now. That's why the domestic violence and the violence against women and child is increasing day by day during the COVID-19 situation. And one very important aspect is the grief and loss. The grief, the loss of my loving one, the death of my loving one, and the uncertain death. I can touch them, I can go for the rituals, I can see them. So there is so many grief and loss, there is so many attachment anxiety that we lost our attachment figures, we lost our job, we lost our happiness, we lost our control over my arena. So there are so many grief and loss here. And parental relationship issues, as I'm working with the young adults, so there is already a cohort gap with their parents and the students. But still, as they are in a situation, in a lockdown situation, they are staying all the time in one home. So the mismatch, the conflict of their opinion is increasing day by day. So parents and children, young adults, they are taking continuous session, taking continuous counseling support. But those who are not going for the counseling support, so that's really alarming. So it can be anger, it can be frustration. So in a word, if I can summarize that during this pandemic situation, there are two types of negative thoughts that is associated with our feelings of anxiety, helplessness, panic, fear of future, what is going to happen, anger, and we make ourselves isolated. And if I think for the second one, negative thoughts associated with feelings of guilt, shame, regret, and sometimes intolerance about the uncertainty. And I have so many clients, they are medical professional, and they are having this issue of guilt because they are thinking that as they need to go to the hospital, they need to work with the COVID-19 patients. So when they come back to the home, his or her family member can be affected. So the fear is double in the case of the health professionals. So this is the basic effects of COVID-19 from my experience. There are individual difference, I'm telling you, because psychological health is individually different, it's subjective, and it can be how I'm going to explain the situation. That is the very important thing, how I am reacting or responding with the situation. So yes, who are the vulnerable uh, people during this situation, during this pandemic situation? So the first group, the people who already have some psychological issues. So Hale also mentioned that the obsessive compulsive disorder. So this behavior is influencing because we need to wash our hand each after a certain period of time and for a certain period of 20 seconds. So it can be repeated, it can be something that increases the obsessive and compulsive thought within the client. So another thing, that childhood trauma, those has childhood trauma, it can be sexual abuse, it can be verbal abuse, it can be physical abuse. So the fear they are feeling right now, the guilt they are feeling right now, the touchstone memory is from the childhood. So they are feeling right now still that helpless feeling when they were abused in their childhood. That helpless feeling, that fear feeling was present there, and still they are facing the same similar type of situation. So there is a rubber banding, there is an interconnection between the childhood and our fearful situation right now. So those who have childhood trauma memory, excessive childhood trauma memory, they may be more vulnerable during this COVID-19 situation, maybe go for the suicidal attempt. There are so many clients of ours, they have taken the suicidal attempt for the first time during this type of situation, during this COVID-19 situation. So if I go for the third option, then lack of emotional regulation, that if I can't control over my emotion, it can be excessive, it can be low. Sometimes we become hypersensitive to our stresses, or we can't control, we don't have our control over the emotion. So then these people can be reactive to the situation so easily. If we don't have the social support, my friend circle, I'm not too much open, I'm introvert, I don't want to share. So there are, so if there is the lacking of social support, it can be a vulnerable situation for the person, because if we share something, it is a great way of our of the healing of our mental health. It's really important. So frustration, I already mentioned that frustration also created that if I'm really frustrated about myself, I'm not accepting myself the way I am. And it's a previous issue within me. And right now, this can be a trigger factor. That total situation can be a trigger factor for the mental health disorder. And displacement, I already mentioned that we displace our anger, frustration, negative feeling to other who are less powerful than us. So here I want to mention one thing, as it is now clear that mental health is really important for our healthy life. So please take support from the mental health professional. It's not a bad thing. If it's so comfortable that when we feel the fear, when we feel something, physiological changes or physical diseases, we immediately go to the doctor to take the support. So think that mental health is also the part of your health. Without mental health, a healthy mental health, you can't lead a healthy life. So please, taking mental health support is your right. So stand for your right and start or protest the stigma regarding the mental health issues, or taking the mental health support from the professionals. So yes, I want also mention something about food and mood. I just slightly change that that mood and food. So mood impact, the impact of mood on our food. So Dr. Heller already mentioned something. I want to mention something interesting that I was looking forward that topic. So it's interesting to me that boredom, depression, fatigue, it's influence our consumption and higher consumption. When we are fearful, pain is there, shame, tension is there, so there is lower consumption. If we are in the positive emotion, we take the healthy foods, because then we become aware about our future, we become aware, about our physical health, because I'm really positive then. So then the healthy consumption, we choose the healthy foods. Or if we feel negative emotion, we just go for the junk food, the immediate satisfaction, chocolate. We are having chocolate when we feel depressed. I'm also doing that. So it thinks the taste of the chocolate can help me to change my mood from negative to positive. Maybe it's something that we are avoiding the situation, we are avoiding the stressful situation rather than accepting the situation and going for the option. So the third thing, that positive emotion, when we are feeling the positive emotions, we take time, we are mindful about our eating. We think about the taste, oh my God, that the food is really tasty. But when we are negative, we are having some issues with our mental health, we become just, having food is, it's just a duty for me. Okay, I'm having some food. So that's why maybe we are having much more food or less food during our stressful situation. So another thing that most of the cases, sometimes in the case of unhappy mood, we consume more food. It's again something we are diverting our attention from the event to the food. And specific emotions can lead different food craving. So it's an interesting finding from Dr. Lisa, a Denver weight loss specialist, that she developed a theory that in crunchy food, sometimes that is so crunchy, crispy, called the head hungry, that when you become so angry, if we have the crunchy food, it's really for some of people, it's giving us some satisfaction. So some food is like heart hungry. That is something, ice cream, pasta, cinnamon rolls. This is something I'm feeling depressed, empty, and it's giving me the soothing feeling. So these all are finding, and these all are individual finding. I'm telling you repeatedly, it's not the ultimate thing, because it's different individual to individual. So another thing, certain personality pattern is also impacting our choice of food. People who have desire for fast moving, they enjoy spicy food. And those are compassionate, caring for other, they prefer sweet food. They are sweet to themselves and sweet to others as well. Salty and crunchy food, they are ambitious and competitive. And of course, again, I want to mention, this is not true for every person. This research finding it's seems to me really interesting. That's why I share with you all. So yes, the important part of my presentation, that taking care of your mental health, it's really important during this pandemic situation as well as every time. But if I pick this situation, repeatedly we are listening that we need to take care of our mental health as well, along with the physical safety, because a positive mental health can boost your immune system, and the negative mental health can affect your immune system. But right now we need to work on our immunity, so we need to be powerful, we need to be powerful within ourselves. So here, the first thing, acknowledge our emotion is very important. This is a situation, we can feel fear, we can feel the unhappiness feeling. So acknowledge your feel, acknowledge your negative emotions. Well, most of the cases we are feeling that no, why I'm thinking like that, it's something like this situation will be gone. It is something, I'm in the home, there won't be anything happen to me. So please acknowledge your emotion. You can be fearful during this type of fearful situation. It's okay to be fearful sometimes. It's okay to take care of your emotions every time. So healthy eating habit, already mentioned so nicely from the previous presentation. Healthy use of social media, it's really important. If I take my example, during the first period of COVID-19 situation, I was repeatedly gone through the social media, Facebook, and all the newses that how many is going to be affected today, has been affected today. So I feel that I just realized that it makes me so stressful, and I couldn't concentrate that time. I was really ferocious, like with my child that time, because I'm really blocked. My thinking pattern is something different. So then I just give a boundary to me that I can check 1 or 2 times, and it's really helpful. And there is a guideline from the World Health Organization in using that social media as well. We can go through the messages, we can go through Facebook, we can go through social networking, because this is one thing that we need to do right now for maintaining our social support, social system, for the validation, ventilation. But we need to give a boundary. If I go for the sleep and taking my mobile with me, sleep will gone. So healthy, good sleep habit is also very important. 6 to 7 hours is really important for a human being, for their full activation of their brain. So our healthy use of social media and meditation. Meditation is helping us to come back to the present. If you think about our right now situation, we are really thinking about our past. Oh, my lovely past. For example, the traffic jam is a very bad situation in Bangladesh, but right now I'm missing the traffic jam. So that means I'm in the past. And right now the stress, frustration is all about our future. So we are missing our present. So meditation is helping us to be mindful, to be in the present. So deep breathing, another thing that as there are so hormonal secretion, hormonal changes in our body during the stressful situation, already mentioned so nicely from the previous two presentation. So deep breathing helping us to calm down again. So it's so simple. You inhale by counting 1, 2, 3, 4, then hold your breath for 7 seconds and exhale through your nose or mouth by counting 1 to 8. So it's give you the calmness, and it's make the balancing of the oxygen circulation throughout our whole body. So deep breathing meditation has scientific explanation to be grounded, to be mindful, to come to the present. So be in the present and good sleep habit, I already mentioned. Support system. Please share your feeling with your loving one, with your friends, if there is no way, please go for the mental health professional. Now in Bangladesh and also in the South Asian region and in the whole worldwide, online counseling service is open. So please take service. Set a routine. We don't have any routine right now, most of the cases. So if you set a routine that what I'm going to do in a day, when will be my sleeping time, when will be my social media using time, when will be my movie time. So this all can be really grateful. And one thing I want to mention so importantly, that is my self-care. This is the last thing in my presentation that is really important. Please take care of yourself. And self consists our physical health, our mental health or psychological health, and our spiritual health. Spiritual health means my existence, that I am here. Physical health, our physical structure. So most of the cases when we meet any friend of mine, we are asked, how are you? That is that giving them the message that how I'm physically, most of the cases. But we need to take care of my psychological health. So meditation is a very good way to take care of your psychological health. And here I again mention that self-care is related to taking the responsibility of our own feeling. For example, most of the cases we say that he makes me angry, she makes me sad. But look, this is my decision. If I want to be angry, somebody can make me angry. If I want to be sad, somebody have the power to make me sad. So I'm giving the power. So that's why every feeling that is positive or negative, that is my responsibility. I want to be like, I want to feel like that. So take the responsibility. It will be really helpful if you take the responsibility. Then you feel for the feeling and you can work for that. You can accept that feeling. So the next thing is very important. Express gratitude towards yourself and others. We never be thankful to ours but if you think from the childhood, everyone, those who are present right now, so the 51 participant and the organizer, please think about your childhood. And right now, gradually you are creating your place. That's why you are here today. So give a great thanks to you. It's your uh, it's your achievement, it's your accomplishment. So expressing gratitude is really important toward you and also yourself. We never be thankful to our mother. We never say thank you mom for the food, thank you baba for the love, thank you to my life partner. We never say thank you to each other because there is a stigma that if you go for thank you or appreciate yourself and the other person, maybe the other person is become somebody else. So no, don't do that. But please appreciate yourself and appreciate others. Forgiveness is one very important thing in the case of self-care. We did so many mistakes, and the person in front of us also did so many mistakes, but we always remember those mistakes. So please forgive yourself, forgive the person in front of you, because this is the situation. During this COVID-19 situation, there are so many uncertainty happens. So if you don't take care of yours and your loving ones, there won't be anyone who can help you. And the last thing that is really important, accept yourself the way you are. That means I'm okay the way I am. I'm not like somebody. I have so many qualities. I have so many skills. With those skills, we can be a potential person for my community, for my society. So it's really important. So value yourself, then the people in front of you also give value to yourself. That's really important. So yes, let's breathe. This is a situation, this COVID-19 situation is most of the cases out of control, but we have control over our breath. We are lucky that we are having our breath. So thankful to the Almighty, be thankful to you that you are breathing. So let's breathe and be healthy and take care of your mental health. And if needed, go for counseling service. So these all are the reference that we have. I have mentioned some research findings also. So you can go through the findings also. So over to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Siddiqa. It was wonderful and very nicely and very lucidly explained. And the relation between personality and food intake was really, really amazing. We'll have a very short interaction with the speakers due to the shortage of time. So I will hand over the proceedings for the interaction to Dr. Shongita Manna, uh, our faculty member Oritri Nondi and Sajida Khatun, all faculty members of the Department of Food and Nutrition of Maharani Kashishwari College. Over to all of you.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes. Yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Dattarai, Dr. Aisha Siddiqui, and Dr. Ahmed for your elaborate and very informative presentation. I want to ask one question to Professor Dattarai. Sir, hello. Sir, are you hearing me?
Sir, please, have you unmuted yourself? We have sent the request.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Sir, in your presentation, you have mentioned DHA inhibits retinal ganglion cell death. It protects against oxidative stress, and it also downregulates pro-inflammatory signaling, protecting neuron death, etc. As we know, mainly most of the food contain DHA and EPA together. My question is, EPA can affect in the same way as DHA
No.
in the
Food has so many
neurological function?
things. Food has hundreds of things. EPA, DHA comes together, that's true. If you have a fish oil, but not most of the food has EPA and DHA. It is mostly those food coming from fish, sea fish or seafood. And if you look at the biochemistry of fatty acid metabolism, the alpha-linolenic acid by desaturase enzymes involving it goes to EPA, eicosapentaenoic acid with 20 carbon and 5 double bonds, and then it goes to DHA, docosahexaenoic acid there. And EPA has a different kind of program. It is more competitive against arachidonic acid, 24 carbon, omega-6 fatty acid, whereas the DHA is quite unique in that way. It has a 22 carbon, huge chain and 6 double bonds. It gives a unique situation to the membrane. And recently, last 4 or 5 years, we have so many second messenger, resolvins, protectin, etc. You can see one of my reviews published last year. They are quite unique compared to any other fatty acids, and it uniquely fitted with the membrane so that it can do the jobs. So in a way, EPA does different thing than the DHA, although EPA is the precursor of DHA, and DHA can be retroconverted to EPA. So if you take alpha-linolenic acid only, that is coming from vegetarian food. Gandhiji used to drink flaxseed oil. Your conversion is not that much. You get a little bit EPA and a little bit DHA. But if you take supplement, omega-3, EPA, DHA together, and also from seafood, then EPA can be converted to some extent to DHA and do the job. But EPA has its own kind of area and doing different way than DHA. And sometimes they do the same thing, but mostly different.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. Over to Orithri Nandi.
Hello?
Yes, Sajida. I think Orithri is having a little bit of a problem. Sajida, yes.
Yes. So my colleague is having a little problem. So I'll be asking question to Dr. Helaluddin, sir. So the question is, how positive energy status is related to mental health?
Dr. Hilal, I think Sajida, you can repeat the question once more, please.
The question is, how positive energy status is related to mental health?
Yes, positive status is related to the mental health because it depends on the cognitions and depends on our well-being and others. The positiveness depends on the 2 ways. One is the environmental ways, another is the biochemical ways. Is the environmental ways we have thinking that the positive environment, positive thinking, positive doing, positive thinking, that is the another thing. Another biochemical way that the Professor Washim Kumar Tattarai Chaudhuri said that is that there is the serotonin level, dopaminergic activity that also give up the positive. When we see a very good pictures or hearing a very good song, our mentality, our mind is in positive way. That is the changing the chemical balance in our brain and neurotransmitter balance. That is the chemical explanation. Another explanation is that is the positive thinking can change our biochemical changes. That is like said in Bangla language, you say murgi age. That means where the egg is first, where the chicken is first. That means where the positive thinking first, that change the biochemicals, or the biochemical changes after the positiveness. That's the vice versa. Actually, the thinking that is the vice versa, and that is actually the biopsychosocial method. Our biochemical change, psychological makeup, and the social environment. Everything changes us in positively. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. I think Oritri has joined back. Oritri Nondi, hand over to you, the proceedings for interaction. I think, okay, Sajida, continue. Sajida, please continue. I request Sajida to please continue the question.
Thank you so much, sir, for your insightful words. And now I would like to ask question to Mrs. Aisha Siddiqui. The question has been asked by a participant named Tajuddin Mondal. And the question is excessive sleeping a sign of depression?
Thank you for the question. Depression is a very critical term, but we use it so easily. So there are so many difference between the sadness and depression, and sleep has a very good interaction with our very strong interaction with our mental health. So it's not mandatory that it's need to be it. That means if we have a sleep disturbance, that means I'm depressed. But there can be, it's one of the symptom, can be. So it's nothing depression. If it's need to be diagnosed as depression, we need observation, we need to talk with the client. So there are so many connection with other symptoms also. So it's not like that if I have some sleep issues, I'm depressed. So if you have any issues, please, you can talk with the professionals as well to get the instruction or direct instruction, because you are worried about it, I understand. That's why you're asking the question. So you can go for the professional help as well. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for your answer. It was really lovely. We have so many questions coming up, so many people in the group as well as in the chat box. They are asking, they're wanting to ask, but unfortunately there's always a time limit to everything. Before I pass on to the formal, we are at the end of the session. We are at the end of the webinar, I should say. So before handing over for the formal Thanksgiving, I request for a feedback from our principal, ma'am, who has been there from the very beginning and supporting us all through. Ma'am, over to you.
Yes. Can you all hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, yes. It was really a lovely session, and our college is honored for such a brilliant session, I should say. And the combination of speakers is such excellent that all the time during this session we got so many messages from various places in India and outside. And I must say that this combination is just a brilliant completeness in discussing the subject. As our last speaker, Mrs. Aisha Siddiqa, she concluded with the confidence, self-confidence, that we have that power to think positive about our power, the power within us that can help us to make us happy in all situations. And before her, our second speaker, Dr. Ahmed, he said that he is talked about disorder, and during the question answer session, he said the positive thinking can result in chemical changes that will also result in positive thinking, and that is able to do something positive to our whole society. And about the first speaker, Dr. Dr. Rai, I must say that any student will need years and not a few hours to learn from him a lot. And actually, he described the whole body, all the systems in a human body, how they are interconnected, starting from circulatory system, nervous system, and also digestive system, endocrine system, all about. He gave a marvelous information, and we all enjoyed the whole session. I think everybody will agree with this, and we will expect these people to talk to us in near future also. Thank you all.
Okay. Thank you so much, ma'am, for your words. Now, I request Ms. Suryatapa Das, Assistant Professor of Food and Nutrition Department, MKC, to deliver the formal vote of thanks.
Thank you, Sachida. A very good evening, everyone. So, am I audible?
Yes.
Am I audible?
Yes.
A very good evening, everyone. So, we have come almost at the end of the webinar, and I, Suryatapa Das, on behalf of Maharani Kasishwari College, is going to deliver the formal vote of thanks. First of all, I would like to thank all our honorable speakers, Dr. Asim Dr. Roy, Dr. Helaluddin Ahmed, and Mrs. Aisha Siddiqa for their valuable speeches. I, on behalf of Maharani Kasishwari College and BADN, convey our sincere gratitude to Dr. Asim Dr. Roy sir for such an excellent keynote speech on role of diet and gut of microbiomes in psychiatry. I would like to thank Dr. Helaluddin Ahmed for his vivid speech on eating behavior and mental health. I would heartily thank you, Mrs. Aisha Siddiqa, for her speech on impact of COVID-19 pandemic on mental health, which is a relevant topic in the current scenario. Now, I would convey my sincere gratitude to the chairperson and the chief patron of the webinar, Dr. Seema Chakraborty, principal of Maharani Kasishwari College, for giving us permission to organize this webinar. Madam, you are always being our inspiration. I would like to thank the joint convener of the webinar, Dr. Tapan Kumar Chand, IQAC Coordinator, MKC, Dr. Anindita Rai Chakraborty, HOD, Department of Food and Nutrition, MKC, and Dr. Mrs. Sajeda Kasim Jyoti, Executive Director, Bangladesh Academy of Dietetics and Nutrition, for their efforts to arrange this webinar. Thanks a lot, BDN, for the collaboration. Now, I would like to thank all the faculty members of the Department of Food and Nutrition of MKC, Dr. Anindita Rai Chakraborty, Sajeda Khatun, Dr. Sangita Manna, Mrs. Oritri Nondi, Ms. Sejiti Roy, and Dr. Tanima Pal for their active support to materialize this webinar. I must thank the advisory committee of this webinar for their support. Now, I must convey my sincere thanks to our MKC faculty, Mrs. Urpita Bhaduri, Assistant Professor in Computer Science, and Sri Amit Choudhury, Lecturer in Computer Science, for their constant support regarding technical matter. Otherwise, the webinar would not be possible. Last but not the least, I would heartily thank all the participants for making the huge success of this webinar. Here is an important announcement. The feedback form is sent via the email and WhatsApp. Please fill the feedback form and don't forget to submit it so that we can generate the e-certificate for you. Now we are going to close the webinar officially. All the participants are requested to leave the meeting. Hope we will meet you soon in another such webinar. Thanks a lot again, and good night all.
Thank you so much, Suryatapa. It was really an honor and a pleasure to have all of you. We formally close this webinar, And I, again, sincerely, heartily thank all the participants and the speakers for staying with us for such a long time. Thank you so much.